So, hello again. This is the last video in the physical move part of my How to Move to Norway series. And today we are going to talk about cars and importing cars in Norway and how to deal with the whole impossible situation that the rules suggested us. So if you want to import a car into Norway, I'm just going to say to you no. No, don't do it. It's not worth it. End of the video, bye. Okay, seriously. I'm going to talk to you about the things I know, the things we can find on the government websites, like the information that exists. We're going to talk about the costs, and even though there's so much information, and even though I did it myself, I still don't quite understand it. So it's very, I don't know, somehow it's not so logical and it's very difficult to understand. But still, we're going to go over everything I know, and then you can decide for yourself if you want to figure it out, how you will do it and how you will handle your situation. Because this is also the most difficult video I had to prepare for. While I was writing the video script, I realized no, I still don't get it actually. It's very difficult, and we will talk about the costs. We will talk about the cost of importing a car, and it's not worth it. That's I can give you this conclusion already, so it's not worth it. If you just want to believe me on my word, you can just stop watching here. It's it's not worth it. But okay, let's start at the beginning. So the general rule, the default rule is if you live in Norway, if your permanent location is registered in Norway, then you cannot drive a car with a foreign license plate. It is not allowed. So that means that you either have to buy a Norwegian car and a car in Norway, or you have to import, officially import your car that you brought with you from your home country. Those are your only two options. Now there is a little bit of a gray area in here, because if you only move temporarily for Norway, especially if you only live here for up to 1 year at a time, for example for your job, or you still have family in your home country, you're traveling back and front, and then your primary location is still not in Norway, although you live here, then you are allowed. So that is very clear. So you are allowed to drive with this foreign license plate if you can show at all times that you are indeed temporarily living in Norway. So to figure out which one of these cases you are, we're going to fill in a tool together. So let's go to this website here. And luckily all of this is also available in English, so for the sake of this video, we'll do it in English. So you will notice here that we have 3 options to start with. And one of these options is actually moving. And we are going to explore the option more of permanently locating to Norway. That's actually more the purpose of this series if you are looking to live in Norway for the next foreseeable time, right? You are moving to Norway or relocating to Norway. I'm going to go with you through this option here, moving permanently to Norway. And this actually tells you are not allowed. So it tells you that you have to, if you want to take your vehicle with you, you have to apply for this temporarily driving permits, and you have to fill in an application for it. But let's see what happens when we go through with this, right? So we're going to click this button, submit your application, and then we are here on this online wall. So if you look here, you see that we are on the Alten website. Now Alten is a government website in Norway which collects a lot of very useful information connected to your personal case in Norway, or your personal person in Norway actually, and you have to log in. And to log in, you actually need the Norwegian personal number. So we are in a loop here. So to import your car in Norway, you actually already have to be registered, which implies all your paperwork has to be completely okay already in Norway before you can move your vehicle. So that means that you have to either go back and from and travel back and forth from Norway to your home country until all your paperwork is in order, and then move your car and import it. Or you have to move yourself first, wait until everything is okay for you, go back to your home country, and then drive your car up and import it. So that's already very, very tricky, I think. And most people are still very much, or even have to begin this paperwork process after they move to Norway. So for me, this is already a very interesting logistic challenge. But if you're still okay, no, I'm really thinking of importing my car in Norway, then the government actually has a very, very nice website on all the steps that you have to complete in order to import this car. I will put it on the screen here, but I'm not going to read this or even try to explain this for you. But as you look through this list, you can already see how long and complicated this process is. So I will link this website and a similar one in the description box, so you can just go and read it for yourself. So if I have not scared you away already with this very difficult logistic and administrative situation, then I will now try to scare you away from it by looking at how much it costs to import your car. So again, the Norwegian Tax Administration website has a very nice tool on its website, so we are going to fill it in together with a hypothetical car. Okay, let's fill this in together. Let's choose cars, of course. I'm going to take the most common option, I think. Next. We are going to import a vehicle that you owned before, because otherwise different rules again, so yes. Then you have to register how old the car is, right? When was it first registered? For the sake of the argument, we're going to take a car that was registered in 2016. Like today, but in 2016. Okay, next. I'm not going to do this, you can probably look it up for a specific car, but this tool actually will give you an estimation when you choose no. Then the purchase price. And you have to fill it in Norwegian krones. So I'm going to take a car that is around 10,000 euros. And for krones, you just have to multiply by a factor of 10, so 100,000 krones. Next. Then I'm going to choose diesel here, because that will be the most expensive to import, just for the sake of the argument. Then, you see here it gives you an estimation, because you didn't fill in a few steps before, but we're going to just go with it. It's probably quite accurate. Then, we're going to fill this in. We're going to take 1,000, like a regular car, I think. Then let's see, 1,300 kilograms, and then you have to fill in the horsepower too, and yeah, let's take 180. Next. So this is an optional alternative calculation method. We're also not going to waste our time with this, but you can of course explore this if you really want to import your car. Calculate. So now we're going to see how much it costs. And you can see here, you can click through it, how exactly are these taxes calculated. So these are the total extra taxes. You can see how they are calculated. And this one-off registration tax, let's click it. And this is everything to do with like the things that you filled in, right? Like the specifics of your car. You can see here exactly how much you have to pay for everything. I'm going to, let's just go back, all the way back. Registered. Because there is a little trick that when you import like an old timer, so that's a car that's more than 20 years old, you will see that the price will drastically go down. So we're going to change this. Date of today, but we are going to back in the year 2000. And then I'm going to just fill everything exactly the same way as I did before. And as you see here, this additional tax, I will open this one, you only have to pay for the scrap deposit. So you do not have to pay this one-time registration tax, because we are talking about a car that's older than 20 years old. So now you also know how extremely expensive it is to import a car. Even if you choose to go for this old-timer option, it's still very costly. But then of course, if I have scared you away, good. I can't imagine how many people do this actually. But you also see a very big disadvantage in choosing not to, right? Especially because Norway, it is a very big and rural country in most places, and unless you live in a very big city like Oslo or Bergen or any of those cities, you will probably need a car to get around, even if it's just from your house to the shop if you don't want to walk for an hour. So you actually do need a car, and even if you decide to take the first few weeks on a holiday, you still have to go to the you have to have these meetings with the government to apply for your personal number and to get your bank account, and you need a car to get around for that. Maybe you start working already and you have to go to your job. Most likely, if you're not living in the center of a big city, you will need a car to get around. So either you try to rely on the public transport. If you live in a big city, that should be no problem. Disclaimer there. But if you live in a place like I do, trying to rely on public transport, it is just a complete nightmare. It's just a complete nightmare. You probably have to walk 30 minutes to the nearest bus station and try to do that in the middle of winter when there's a half-meter snow and everything is ice on the road. And then still the buses are very irregular. So you have some buses like on the peak hours, like when the children go to school, you have a few hours, and when the school is done again, you have a few buses. But in between, there's like once every 2 hours or something. And then if you have an appointment in a place close by, and the appointment takes like 10 minutes, but it will take you like 3 hours to get back to your house. It's just a complete nightmare. That's just my personal opinion, and it's obviously connected with the location that I live in. I live very rural, but still, like to be a bit comfortable, we needed a car. And you could also go for the option of renting a car, which is very expensive. And then you can still think, okay, but why don't I just buy a car in Norway the first day or the first week that I'm here? Well, I will tell you why that's not possible. To be able to buy a car in Norway, you need a personal number, you need a bank account, and you need all of that stuff, because you have to transport the ownership of the car, you have to get a Norwegian insurance for your car, so you need like a bank account, and you need to have your administration in order to make this possible. And even in normal circumstances, to get this paperwork, to get everything you need, it takes at least a couple of weeks. So you really have this annoying gap here where it's very frustrating, because you can't bring a car with you, you can't buy a car yet. Renting is so expensive, and public transport is a nightmare. I don't know, this is not a good video because one, I don't completely understand how it works, and two, I just seem to ramble on and I can't give you quite a good solution. So if you are still watching, thank you so much. I will try to make it more clear in the next coming minutes. So we'll actually try to suggest a solution here. I'm going to tell you what we did, and then maybe possibly how you could solve this if you need to solve this problem. But I have to give like a little side note here. It's very grey. It's very grey. The area which we are moving ourselves in is very grey. If you only start applying for a personal number after you have moved, then before you make this application, you are still on holiday. Actually, you are still quite on holiday. That means you can still drive your own car. You can drive your own car into Norway, across the border, no problem. So you could actually do this. You could say, okay, I'm just going to bring my car, I'm going to physically move myself to Norway with my car, and I'm going to ride around with this car until I have my appointment with the government to make officially my application that I'm going to stay permanently here and need a permanent personal number. So up until this date, you are completely fine. And you could say, okay, I'm going to drive my car here, I'm going to drive around, and then right before this appointment or on the day of this appointment, I'm going to figure out a way to drive my car back to my home country and sell it there, and then go back to Norway. The day that you make this official application, you make your intention clear that you are planning to stay permanently in Norway. And from the moment you make this intention clear, you're actually not allowed anymore to drive with this foreign license plate. So the real problem actually only starts from this date. So that means that you have your physically moving period, you have that covered if you are moving with a car. Like, because for example, in our situation, we moved in the middle of the pandemic. And that meant that the government decided here in Norway to close down most government buildings. The only building that were drivable for us was Bergen, which is like 6.5 hours away from us, or Oslo. So those were the two only offices that were still open that we could go to make this official application for a personal number. But because there were so few offices open in Norway, the waiting time to get an appointment was very, very long. We had to wait 2 months. I think we had to wait 2 months to get this appointment. And we were still already living our life here. So we bought a car with us from Belgium and we drove around with this Belgian car while we were like technically on holiday until we had this date. And we even decided not to take our own car because it was in our head, the logistics were more complicated because then we had to go back to Belgium to sell this car. So we sold our car in advance and then we actually took my mother's car. And this was very handy for us because she was working from home anyway, so she could make it work with my grandpa and my grandpa's car and my father's car. And then we could use my mother's car to drive this period in Norway. Obviously, we had to take care of some insurances here that made sure that we could drive this car and it was allowed to stay abroad for so long. And then when the time came that we were not allowed to drive with this car anymore, we just figured out a way that I like drove to Sweden, and my mother and my sister, they flew to Sweden, and then I flew back and then they took the car home. So I didn't have to go all the way to Belgium, which would have been a nightmare in this COVID restrictions anyway. So this sounds like a serious disadvantage, like this COVID restrictions and this situation that it created for us. But it also presented us with a solution for the scar problem, because we were already working. So I had a job at the time, my husband had also a job, and both our employers, they could not wait to like pay us, and we needed like a bank account, and they need to have this paperwork and insurance and all this like employee administration stuff. They had to like bring it in order, and they could not wait 2 months for this until we had our appointment, and then waiting for this time between his appointment and where our case was actually concluded and we had this personal number. We actually got assigned like a temporary number. This is called, I will tell you everything about this in the next video, but this is called actually a D number. And this number only gets used for workers who come to work in Norway like for like a short amount of time, who are like temporary in Norway. If you have this D number, you can do the most basic stuff. I will explain everything about the difference between like a permanent personal number and a temporary personal number, and everything will go in the next video. But just so you know, if you have this temporal number like this D number, then you can actually show, or you have like proof that this is only a temporal situation, then you are still allowed to drive with a foreign license plate. So we had no problem until we had this date with the government and we made our application. But then even in this waiting area between the application and the conclusion of our case, we still had this D number, because only on the date of the assignment of our permanent number would our D number be switched to this permanent number. So actually we were in a great area because we made our intention clear. Okay, we want to stay permanently, but at the same time we still had proof in our hands. Oh, this is a temporal situation. So we just took advantage of it, to be fair. And I don't know if it's completely correct, or I don't want to suggest you like don't obey the rules or you break the law or something, but this is how we kind of solved that case. And then because I think it took 3 or 4 weeks to get our case concluded, and this actually meant for us that we still had a car in this 3 or 4 weeks, and we could live our lives, and we could go do our job, and we could go to the shop, and we could just get around in Norway. Because, and as I will tell you in the next video, I actually don't recommend this because it is way more administrative. Like for your administration and your paperwork, it's much more difficult to switch from a D from a temporal number to a permanent number than it is to make an application for a permanent number like in the first place. But because of COVID, we had to do it this way, and it proved to be a solution for our car problem. But it also means that I can't really give you a solution for your problem if you go for this permanent thing directly, which I do recommend. So the only thing I can suggest to you is moving is no problem until the date of your application. And then you have to figure out a way with a rental car on the days you need it, or maybe take a holiday of a few weeks until your case is concluded, or rely on public transport. If you live in a city, no problem. Just know that this is going to be a headbreaker and it's going to be annoying. I really hope I did help you out a little bit in this video, and I got you the right tools to figure out like how you will deal with it. And I apologize for not giving you a solution to this problem and for just rambling on for actually way too long. But anyway, this was it for today. I hope you learned something, and I will see you again in the next video. So, bye for now.